All right, buckle up everyone, because today's deep dive is going to get you prepped for a trained dispatcher interview.
Oh, yeah, using some seriously cool resources from RoleCatcher Career Guides, interview guides, the whole nine yards.
We're talking about a job that keeps our trains moving safely and on time, so let's get you ready to really shine in that interview.
It's a pretty crucial role, you know? Train dispatchers are like the unsung heroes of every train journey, making sure things run like clockwork.
And that everything stays safe, right?
Absolutely. Their decisions impact so much from everyday commuters to like goods getting delivered across the country.
So imagine this a control room, kind of dim, with screens lit up showing all the train movements and this constant buzz of activity.
That's a perfect picture. And right at the center of it all is our train dispatcher, making sure everything's in sync, monitoring signals, talking to the engineers and conductors, making adjustments to schedules.
And always putting safety first.
No doubt about it. It's a high pressure environment, got to have a cool head and be able to think on your feet.
Definitely not for the faint of heart. The RoleCatcher Career Guide actually lays out some pretty intense pros and cons.
Yeah, like the salary is good, job security is there, and you're a vital part of a huge transportation network.
But then there are the irregular hours, high stress, and, well, a massive amount of responsibility.
It's definitely a demanding gig, but for the right person, someone who loves a challenge and is passionate about the railway, it can be super rewarding.
So let's say our listener is that person, someone who's got the guts and the passion for this kind of role. What knowledge do they need to really show off in the interview?
Well, the career guide highlights some key areas: a solid understanding of how train systems work, in-depth knowledge of traffic signals, and of course, being all over those safety protocols.
But it's not just about knowing the facts, is it?
Nope, it's about showing how you'd actually use that knowledge in real-life situations.
Okay, so let's dive into the meat of this deep dive.
Hmm.
The interview itself. We're going to tackle some common train dispatcher questions, straight from RoleCatcher's interview guide, which has over 120,000 practice questions.
Wow, that's a lot. And get this, RoleCatcher's AI can actually help you tailor your answers and get feedback specific to this role.
That's pretty cool, getting that extra edge. Okay, first question. Describe your experience in dispatching trains. Seems simple enough, but what are they really trying to find out here?
They want to see proof, not just hear you say you've done it. Don't just list job titles. Paint a picture of what you did day to day.
So instead of saying, I dispatch trains, you'd say something like, I made sure passenger trains moved safely and efficiently, coordinating with conductors, adjusting schedules based on what was happening on the tracks, and always putting passenger safety first.
Exactly. You've given them context, shown them what you did, and emphasized how important safety is to you all while proving your experience.
Nice. All right, next up. How do you prioritize train movements and dispatches? Things are getting a little trickier now.
Definitely. This one's all about showing you can think on your feet and make tough calls under pressure. Imagine this. You've got multiple trains needing your attention, all with different cargo, deadlines, and destinations.
How do you even decide which one goes first?
Well, you got to consider things like the type of cargo, scheduled arrival times, are there any tracks being worked on, any weather issues?
So you could say something like, I decide which trains go first based on a bunch of things, like how urgent the cargo is, when it's supposed to arrive, and if there are any track maintenance or weather problems. Like, a train with hazardous materials might be more important than a regular freight delivery, but I'd always keep the safety of all the trains and the people on them in mind.
Perfect. You've shown you can analyze the situation, weigh all the factors, and make a judgment call, all while keeping safety top of mind.
And don't forget to mention how you communicate those decisions to the train crews and everyone else involved, right?
Right. Clear communication is key in this role. Okay, ready for a real pressure cooker. Next question. How do you handle emergency situations, like something blocking the tracks or an accident? This one gets to the heart of what a train dispatcher does.
No kidding. This is where they see how you handle things when things go wrong.
Exactly. They want to know you've got a plan for dealing with emergencies and, even better, that you've used it before.
So walk them through your steps, assess the situation, contact the crew and emergency services, figure out a solution.
Yeah. But don't just tell them the theory. Give them a real example from your past experience where you handled an emergency successfully. It shows you can walk the walk.
For instance, you could say, once in a previous job, there was a signal malfunction that could cause a collision. I immediately got in touch with the approaching trains, used safety protocols to stop them, and coordinated with the maintenance team to fix the signal. Both trains pass through safely.
Now that's a strong example. You showed quick thinking, decisive action, and clear communication under pressure. Remember, the more detail you give them, the better.
Awesome. Okay, shifting gears a bit to your technical skills. What software or programs have you used in your previous roles as a train dispatcher?
Now they're testing your knowledge of the tools of the trade. Train dispatching relies a lot on special software for tracking the trains, managing schedules, and communicating with crews.
So they want to know if you're comfortable with these systems and can use them effectively.
Right. You should list the programs you've used and briefly explain what they do. For example, I'm good with train management systems, which I used to see where trains were in real time, making sure they kept a safe distance from each other and didn't collide.
Good start. But don't just name drop the software, right?
Nope, go a step further. Explain how you use those programs to make things safer and more efficient. Did you use a specific feature to optimize routes or improve communication during bad weather? Show them you know how to use technology to do your job well.
Gotcha. It's all about proving you can use technology to keep the trains running safely and on schedule. Now, we've talked a lot about safety already, and this next question goes even deeper. How do you ensure compliance with safety regulations and protocols?
This is huge in the railway industry. They want to see that you really understand and care about safety regulations. Don't just say you follow the rules, show them what you actually do to make sure everyone's operating safely.
So talk about doing regular safety checks, warning crews about potential hazards, and anything extra you do to keep safety a top priority.
Absolutely. You could say, I regularly go over safety procedures with the train crews, do thorough checks before each departure, and keep detailed logs of all safety-related activities. I believe that being proactive about safety is how you prevent accidents and create a culture where everyone prioritizes it.
That sounds really comprehensive and shows you're genuinely committed to safety.
And that's exactly what they're looking for. It's not just a checkbox, it's part of who you are as a professional.
Okay, let's switch gears to something a bit more interpersonal. How do you handle conflicts or disagreements with crew members? Things can get tense in high-pressure situations, so they want to know you can navigate those tough moments.
This one's all about your conflict resolution skills. Show them you can stay calm, communicate effectively, and find solutions that work for everyone.
So highlight your ability to listen to different viewpoints, find common ground, and compromise.
Exactly, and use a real-life example to back it up.
Yeah.
You could say, I had a situation once where a conductor questioned my decision to delay a train because of a possible track issue. I calmly explained why I made that call, listened to their concerns, and in the end, we found a solution that addressed both safety and efficiency.
That shows you can handle disagreements professionally and find a win-win solution.
Right. It proves you're a team player who can deal with tough situations without losing sight of safety and efficiency.
All right, one last question before we move on. Describe a time when you had to make a quick decision on train movements. Train dispatching often involves making split-second decisions with big consequences, so this question tests how you handle pressure.
This is your chance to shine. Pick a specific situation where you had to make a quick call, explain how you made that decision, and highlight the positive outcome. Remember, the more detail, the better.
Okay, so I could say something like, during a sudden thunderstorm, a tree fell onto the tracks, right in the path of an oncoming freight train. I had seconds to decide whether to stop the train, reroute it, or try to clear the tracks. I quickly assessed the situation, considering the train's speed, how close it was to the tree, and if there were any other routes, I decided to order the train to stop immediately, which prevented a possible derailment and kept the crew safe.
Perfect. You showed them you can think fast, make tough decisions under pressure, and that safety is your top priority. Remember, interviewers want proof, so the more specific you are, the better.
That's great advice. Before we jump into more interview questions, I think it's time to take a quick look at how RoleCatcher can really help you prep.
Oh yeah, their AI-powered tools are seriously helpful.
We'll be right back to talk about that.
Sounds good. So we've been talking about how to tackle those tough interview questions, but, sometimes just knowing what to say isn't enough.
You're right. It's how you say it that really matters, and that can be tough, especially when you're under pressure in an interview.
That's where RoleCatcher's AI tools come in. Imagine this. You record yourself answering a practice question,
Okay.
and RoleCatcher's AI analyzes everything, how you speak, the words you use, even your tone of voice, and gives you personalized feedback.
Wow, that's pretty amazing, like having your own interview coach right there in your pocket.
Yeah.
Can you give me an example of how it would actually help someone improve?
Sure, let's say you're practicing your answer to that question about handling disagreements with crew members. You might think you've got it down, Pat. RoleCatcher's AI might pick up on things you don't even notice, like maybe your tone sounds a little defensive, or you're using too much technical jargon that the interviewer wouldn't understand.
So it's not just about getting the right words out there, it's about presenting yourself in a confident and engaging way.
Exactly. RoleCatcher's AI can help you polish your delivery, make sure your answers are clear, concise, and really make an impact. It can even suggest specific phrases or examples to make your responses stronger.
That would be a lifesaver for anyone who gets nervous in interviews or just isn't sure how to express themselves clearly. Speaking of expressing yourself clearly, let's get back to those interview questions. We were talking about how important communication is in this role, and this next question dives right into that. How do you ensure efficient communication with crew members and other departments?
Communication is the backbone of the railway, and the train dispatcher is right at the center of it all. You're constantly relaying information, coordinating movements, and making sure everyone is on the same page.
So what does good communication look like in this job?
Think about it this way. You need to be clear, get to the point, and be able to adjust your communication depending on the situation and who you're talking to. You might be using a radio to talk to train crews, making phone calls to coordinate with other departments, or writing reports to document incidents.
So you're like a communication chameleon. What kind of answer would really impress an interviewer?
You want to highlight your ability to switch up your communication style depending on the situation. You could say something like, I use different ways to communicate, radio, phone, email, depending on how urgent the information is and how complex it is. I always aim for clear and concise communication, using plain language and making sure everyone understands to avoid any mix-ups. And I adapt my approach depending on who I'm talking to, whether it's an engineer, a maintenance supervisor, or even a government official.
That really shows you can handle different communication styles and understand how important it is to tailor your approach.
Exactly. And remember, those communication skills are crucial not just for everyday tasks, but also for handling emergencies and keeping everyone safe.
Okay, let's tackle another question that focuses on following the rules. How do you ensure compliance with company policies and procedures? It seems similar to the safety regulations question, but maybe a bit broader in scope.
It is broader, but the main idea is the same. Show them you're committed to following the rules. This question is about understanding your company's specific policies and making sure they're always followed.
So how should you tackle this one?
Show them you take a proactive approach to compliance. Don't just say you follow the rules. Explain how you actively stay updated on policies, communicate any changes to everyone who needs to know, and deal with any potential violations.
So you could say something like, I make sure I'm always up to date on all company policies. I regularly check for updates, and I'm not afraid to ask questions if anything is unclear. I also make sure to communicate these policies to crew members and other departments through briefings, memos, and on-the-job training. That way, everyone knows what they're responsible for and why compliance is so important.
That's a great response. You've shown that you take compliance seriously and that you're proactive about making sure everyone is on board.
All right, moving on to a question about teamwork. Describe your experience working with locomotive engineers and conductors. Train dispatchers are part of a bigger team, and this question wants to see how well you can collaborate with others.
This is your chance to show off those interpersonal skills and your ability to build strong working relationships with the people on the front lines.
So, what should you focus on in your answer?
Emphasize your ability to communicate clearly, respectfully, and collaboratively. You could say something like, I've always really valued my interactions with engineers and conductors. They're skilled professionals who play a crucial role in making sure our railways run safely and efficiently. I always make sure to communicate with them clearly and respectfully, and I really listen to their concerns and feedback. We work together as a team, sharing information, coordinating movements, and supporting each other so that every train gets to its destination safely and on time.
That response really paints a picture of a positive and supportive work environment, which is great to hear. It also shows that you understand how interconnected everyone's roles are in the railway system and how important it is to work together effectively.
Exactly. Now, before we wrap up this section on interview questions, I want to touch back on RoleCatcher's AI-powered tools. We talked earlier about how they can analyze your answers and give you feedback. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, you mentioned they can pick up on things we might miss. Can you explain that a bit more?
Absolutely. Imagine you've practiced your answer to a question and you're feeling pretty good about it.
Yeah.
But RoleCatcher's AI might pick up on some subtle cues that you don't even realize are there. Maybe your tone is a bit too casual, or you're using industry jargon that could confuse the interviewer.
So it's like having a second set of ears. But these ears are super powered with AI and trained to hear the things that could make or break your interview.
Exactly. RoleCatcher's AI feedback helps you spot areas where you can improve, refine your delivery, and boost your confidence. It's like having a personal interview coach available 24/7.
That's an incredible resource. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground on interview prep, but I think it's time to shift gears and talk about another key aspect of becoming a trained dispatcher.
I'm all ears. What did you have in mind?
Well, we've talked about the skills and knowledge you need for this job, but what about the career path itself? What kind of opportunities are there for growth and advancement?
That's a great question, and one that RoleCatcher's Career Guide addresses in detail. Let's dive into the potential career trajectories for aspiring trained dispatchers. So you're not just stuck in one spot, there's room to grow and specialize. RoleCatcher's Career Guide actually maps out a bunch of paths you can take as you gain experience.
That sounds promising. What kind of paths are we talking about here?
Well, as you become more experienced, you could move up to positions like senior train dispatcher, train operations supervisor, or even train operations manager.
So you can climb the ladder and take on more responsibility.
Exactly. And you can also specialize in a specific area, like freight transport or passenger trains. Some dispatchers even focus on particular regions or types of rail networks.
That's pretty cool. It sounds like there's a lot of flexibility to find your niche and keep learning and growing.
Absolutely. And that's the key to unlocking your potential continuous learning. The career guide really emphasizes how important it is to stay current with what's happening in the industry, going to conferences and looking for professional development opportunities. You can even use RoleCatcher's Career Compass to explore different career paths, figure out your strengths and weaknesses, and set goals for yourself.
So it's all about staying ahead of the game and constantly learning to adapt to new technologies and challenges, right?
Exactly. The railway industry is always changing, so you got to be adaptable and always looking for ways to improve your skills and knowledge.
Good. Before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to touch on one last thing about being a trained dispatcher that we haven't really talked about yet. The work environment itself. The career guide mentions that it's a fast-paced, high-pressure environment. Can you give us a sense of what it's actually like to work as a trained dispatcher?
Okay, picture this. A room full of screens, each one showing multiple trains moving across this huge network. There's this constant hum of activity as dispatchers are tracking train locations, checking track conditions, watching out for potential hazards, and communicating with all sorts of personnel.
Wow, that sounds intense. Not your average office job.
Not at all. It's a dynamic, demanding environment that requires focus, attention to detail, and the ability to stay calm under pressure. Train dispatchers are like the behind-the-scenes heroes who keep the trains running smoothly and safely. Their decisions directly affect the lives of passengers and the efficiency of the whole transportation network.
It sounds like a challenging but incredibly rewarding career path.
It definitely is. If you're someone who thrives in a fast-paced environment, loves solving complex problems, and has a passion for railways, then train dispatching might just be your calling.
Well, I think we've covered all the bases in this deep dive. We explored the role of a trained dispatcher, talked about key interview questions, looked at potential career paths, and even got a feel for the work environment. And we did it all with the help of RoleCatcher's amazing resources.
We've definitely given our listeners a solid understanding of what it takes to succeed in this role.
Absolutely. And if you're feeling inspired to pursue this exciting career, I highly recommend checking out RoleCatcher. Their free tools, personalized feedback, and supportive community can give you the advantage you need to land that dream job.
And remember, whether you're facing a hypothetical train collision or a real-life interview question, staying calm, thinking critically, and communicating clearly will always put you on the right track.
That's a perfect way to wrap things up. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of trained dispatchers. Until next time, keep exploring and never stop learning.